Chapter 49-44. Patriarchy was frightened at the same time. He didn't expect these people to come back and poison him. What on earth did they get from Elder Zung? How did they provoke such people to come after them? This. He couldn't dodge in time and was cut in the shoulder. Blood instantly oozed out, and he retreated. Bang! The fierce palm wind hit Elder Gua, and he flew out. He hit the stone wall and rolled to the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his breath weakened. Cough, cough. Old Gua supported himself against the wall and wanted to stand up, but he saw that the two people's attacks were already coming towards him. At this moment, he, who had nowhere to run or retreat, thought that he would be hit by the palm. Unexpectedly, a furious roar sounded out, followed by an extremely fast figure that flashed past and bit him to the side. Divine Beast! The three people who were attacking him narrowed their eyes and stared at the lion who suddenly jumped out. Elder Gua was stunned when he saw that the lion saved him. Then, anxiety appeared in his eyes. Why are you here? Take your master away from here. The lion glanced at him and said, Master asked me to save you. Elder Gua heard this and opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. In the evening, when he found out that Yin Shi had gone out to the night market, he told the gatekeeper to leave someone to wait for her. When something happened at night, he was glad that she went to the night market and did not get involved in this matter. However, he did not expect that she would come back at this time and let this mythical beast come save him. Where is she? Has she entered the mansion? Elder Gua asked quickly. In the front yard, the lion said. Elder Gua's face changed, and he said, I don't need you to protect me. Go and protect her. She's not a match for these people. Take her away quickly. Even though she was Emperor Qing's disciple, these people had obviously set up the bounded domain and array to kill everyone here. How could they let a child leave alive? Immediately, Old Gui yelled at those people. We have no enmity with each other. Isn't it too cruel for you to annihilate our family like this? Huh, you're protecting someone you shouldn't protect and taking something you shouldn't take. So what if we kill you? The old man among the three snorted coldly. Obviously, he didn't care about the divine beast and the two people in front of him. I'll go get Elder Zung to hand over the item to you. Can you stop now? The injured Yu clan elder asked with an ashen face, panting heavily. He knew that if they continued to fight, the two people would be no match for them. If they were willing to give the thing to them, they would at least be able to survive the night. It's the same after I kill you, the old man said and attacked the elder Yu. It was also at this moment that a black soul shadow floated out from one of the people. He floated in the air and coldly looked at the people who were fighting. His gloomy voice was filled with displeasure. You took so long to retrieve something. What a bunch of trash. With a shout, an invisible pressure came crashing down from above towards Old Gua and the Yu clan's old ancestor. Because of this attack, the two people spat out blood and quickly retreated. They looked at the soul shadow in shock and saw that he had already floated to a guest room in the courtyard. Not long after, he heard a shrill scream coming from inside, followed by silence. Chapter 49-45. Not long after, a soul shadow floated out from inside. Merely at this moment, that soul shadow was holding something that was suffused with a dim light in his hand. That thing was the size of a bracelet, and at the side, there were two small bells. At this moment, this thing was floating above the palm of that soul shadow, as if he was unable to hold this thing. He came to the side of one of them and said, Keep it. Yes, my lord. The middle-aged man responded respectfully and quickly took the item and put it away. That soul shadow swept a glance at those two old men and was too lazy to make a move. Just when he was about to enter the body of that middle-aged man to rest, he felt an extremely pure aura. Innate spiritual body? His eyes narrowed, and light flashed in his eyes, and he flew towards the place where he felt the aura. At this moment, in the inn, Feng Jiu was waiting for Song Mi-er and Yu-er to return. Merely, the more she waited, the more she felt that something was wrong. From Yu-er's mouth, she knew that the location of the Yu family was not far from the West Street and this inn. It was reasonable to say that they were only going to say goodbye and would not stay for long, so why hadn't they returned yet? Although Mi-er was following them, Her heart was still not at ease. Thinking for a bit, she turned around to look at her two sons and said, "You two wait for me here. I will go and see why they haven't returned yet." "Okay, we will wait for Mother here," both of them replied. Fengjiu revealed a smile and rubbed their heads, saying, "The night is getting late. You two don't run around. Obediently wait here. Mother will return in a while." After saying this, she directly rushed out of the window, and with a flash, she rushed into the night. At this moment, at the entrance of the Yu residence, that middle-aged man's head was bleeding, and blood flowed down his cheeks, adding a bit of bloodthirsty aura to his originally ferocious face. He was gasping for breath, fiercely staring at that young girl who was holding a frying pan and kitchen knife in her hands. That frying pan was bigger than ordinary, and at this moment, it was suffused with a strong airflow. With one look, he knew that it was a treasure. Merely, he never knew that there was someone whose treasure was a frying pan. Only the heavens knew that when the bottom of the wok smashed into his head, even with his cultivation protecting his body, his head actually bled from the impact. There was also that kitchen knife. Although it was called a kitchen knife, it was more like a bone knife that was used to chop large bones. The edge of the knife was cold and extremely sharp. With these two things in hand, he had been fighting with her for so long, but he was still unable to kill her. One had to know that this woman looked no more than 15 or 16 years old, especially when she was protecting the little girl behind her. These two people were so weak that they couldn't even be seen. Normally, one move would be enough to deal with them. But right now, even though the young girl's body was heavily injured, she still stubbornly protected the little girl and did not retreat in the slightest. If this continued, it would not do. Roar! Just as he was about to attack again, he suddenly heard a lion's roar. A lion suddenly pounced at him from the side. He was shocked and quickly counterattacked. "Big sister how are you? Are you all right?" Yu worriedly looked at her. Yu's body was full of big and small injuries, but all of them were because of her protection, so she wasn't injured by that person. "You have to quickly leave and go to the inn to find Master. This place is too dangerous, go." Taking advantage of the lion entangling that middle-aged man, Songmi protected her and went towards the entrance, wanting to send her away from this dangerous place as soon as possible. Chapter 49-46. Suddenly hearing that voice, Songmi, heart sunk, and instinctively protecting Yu behind her, then vigilantly looking towards the direction of the voice, she saw that it was not a person, but a soul body. "Quickly go, Songmi." Push her to leave towards that door. "You think you can leave?" That soul body sneered, and with a wave of his hand, Yu, who was running towards the door, as if she had touched some kind of barrier, bounced back and fell on the ground. Seeing this, the uneasiness and worry in Songmi's heart became more and more deep. They were trapped. They couldn't escape. "Who are you? What do you want to do?" Songmi shouted loudly. Then raising the kitchen knife in her hand, she pointed it towards that soul body. That soul body shot a glance at the frying pan in her hand, and a trace of dark light flashed through his eyes. "Cooking God Song Clan's person?" "Yes. If you're sensible, it's best not to touch us. Otherwise, our Song Clan will not let you off." Clearly feeling the terrifying and powerful soul body before her eyes, Songmi could only attempt to use Song Clan to scare him off, but she also knew that the aura of this soul body who was unknown whether it was a human or a ghost was so terrifying. Moreover, recognizing that she was a person of Song Clan, she feared that he would not be easily scared off. He, insignificant Song Clan, nothing more. He sneered, then shooting a glance at Songmi, he waved his hand and brushed her aside. Bang! Almost without any power to resist, she was brushed aside and knocked against the stone wall. Songmi screamed miserably. Then after knocking against the stone wall, she rolled on the ground and spouted out a mouthful of blood. "PFFF, big sister you," cried out in alarm, then ran towards her. A child with innate spiritual body, truly rarely seen. This smells really fragrant. That soul body blocked in front of you, and with an intoxicated expression, He smelled that pure and rich spiritual chi from her body. Get lost. Yu angrily took out her whip and lashed towards him. Shio! The red whip, as if a flame, suddenly attacked and lashed towards that soul body in front of her. That soul body had an intoxicated expression, squinted his eyes. Perhaps he felt that this child's attack also couldn't injure him, so he didn't care about it. However, when he felt an intimidating and fierce aura with a terrifying power attacking him, he was shocked. He opened his eyes and saw a red light flashing in front of him. The speed was too fast for him to see clearly, but he instinctively felt danger and dodged. He had no choice but to dodge the whip that was aimed at him from the front, but he couldn't avoid the whip that landed on half of his body with a whoosh. Hiss! A searing pain shot straight to his soul like a burning flame. It was so painful that he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. His soul quickly retreated, and only then did he look at the whip in the child's hand. God's striking whip. His brows furrowed tightly, and his face, which was not very conspicuous in the night, darkened. A dark and cold aura also spread from his soul. You are the disciple of the Azure God Emperor. There was no doubt in Zhang Xian's mind. Apart from Emperor Qing's disciple, who else would dare to hold the holy whip? Thinking about the words of Emperor Qing, and thinking that this child with innate spiritual body before his eyes was unexpectedly the disciple of Emperor Qing, his brows twitched, and a trace of unwillingness flashed through his eyes. Innate spiritual body child was so nourishing. If he refined her into a pill, then his divine soul would become even more powerful, and perhaps he might ascend to become great emperor in the near future. Chapter 49-47. There was a faint trace of hesitation in his heart. The current him still didn't have the strength to bear the fury of Qing Emperor, so he didn't dare to take this risk. But innate spiritual body was so hard to find. If he obtained her and used her to refine a pill, perhaps he could ascend to become great emperor. At that time, he would naturally be able to contend against Qing Emperor. For a moment, two thoughts floated in his heart. Reason told him not to take this risk, but there was another voice in his mind telling him not to miss this opportunity. As long as he killed all the people here, then no one would know who had taken away this disciple of Qing Emperor. Even if he really knew in the future, at that time, perhaps he would have already ascended to become great emperor. Thinking of this, the excitement in his heart sprang up again, and looking at that child who was holding God beating whip in her hand, it was as if he was looking at a rare treasure. Children were sensitive, especially facing that kind of unkind gaze. It was even more so. At this moment, seeing that unknown, whether it was a human or a ghost looking at her with that kind of strange gaze, Yer tightly grasped God beating whip in her hand and stared at him, then nervously said, I am the disciple of Qing Emperor. If you dare to touch me, my master will not let you off. Although she also didn't want to always bring out her master's name like this. But this unknown, whether it was a human or a ghost looking at her with such a terrifying gaze. She couldn't beat him, couldn't run away, and couldn't ask for help. So what could she do? Is that so? You can rest assured, your master will not know that you were captured by this one. As if he had made up his mind, he revealed a gloomy and carefree smile. Then his soul floated towards you. Songmi clutched her chest and crawled up, and seeing that soul moving towards you, she immediately shouted, Whip him. When that whip hit that soul, half of his body became somewhat transparent, and the aura of his body also weakened a bit, so that whip should be effective on him. Ewer gritted her teeth and once again lashed towards him with the whip. Previously because he didn't put her attack in his eyes, but now that he knew that whip was God-beating whip, he naturally wouldn't allow his soul to be injured again. Therefore, at that moment when Ewer's whip was about to hit, his soul flashed and flew behind Ewer, then stretched out his hand to grab her. Be careful. Seeing this, Songmi didn't care about the injuries on her body and fiercely rushed over, pushing Ewer to one side. The soul body grabbed nothing but air. Killing intent flashed across its eyes as it said in a sinister voice, Since you want to die, I'll let you have a taste of the power of the soul-locking bell." As soon as his voice fell, he stretched out his illusory hand in the direction of the backyard and shouted at the same time, "Soul-locking bell, come." When a middle-aged man in the backyard heard the sound, he felt a shock in his mind. Almost instinctively, he took out the small treasure that he had put away earlier. The two small bells on the treasure shook slightly and let out a clear sound. In the next moment, it was as if there was a force that sucked the item away. With a whoosh, it flew toward the front yard. Clang! The soul-locking bell fell into the soul's hand. It looked like it was being held, but it was actually being controlled by a force. Collect! He took one of the bells and shook it at Songmi. A gust of air surged and a crisp sound rang out. Songmi fell to the ground, and a wisp of her soul was sucked out and sucked into the bell. Chapter 49-48. You, cried out in alarm, then ran towards me, who was lying on the ground. At this time, that soul body held that soul-locking bell in one hand, and the other hand grabbed towards you, then said with somewhat gloomy voice, "Follow this, Lord." When Fengjiu rushed over, she saw that Yu family was enveloped by barrier and formation. She frowned, then without any hesitation, she jumped on top of that wall. Standing on top of the wall, she just happened to see the scene below, so she immediately condensed a stream of qi with her finger and pointed it towards that soul body below. Ah! That soul body cried out in pain, then retracted his hand. Then his figure floated backwards, and his gloomy and cold gaze fiercely looked towards that person. But he saw that person was wearing ordinary clothes, and her appearance was also ordinary woman, and the only thing that made people frightened was that her ice-cold eyes contained killing intent. "Who are you? Dare to spoil this Lord's good matter?" He gloomily shouted, and vigilantly stared at that person who had suddenly appeared. Fengjiu came to the side of Yu. Then, sizing her up, she asked, "Are you okay?" Yu knew that she couldn't let other people know the relationship between her and her mother. So when she saw her mother, she didn't call out, rather shouted, "I am fine," but he pulled out the soul of big sister Miur and used that thing in his hand. Hearing what was said, Fengjiu narrowed her eyes, then stared at that thing in the hand of that soul body. Next moment, a powerful stream of qi revolved in her palm, and flame rushed out towards that soul body, surrounding it. Perhaps because he sensed the strength of the other party, at this moment, he didn't care about anything else, and immediately floated towards the rear courtyard. But how could Fengjiu let him leave under her eyes? "Give me the whip." She took the whip from the hand of Yu. Then, with a swish, she threw it towards that soul body. The whip shot out nimbly, bringing with it a terrifying pressure. With a swoosh, it landed on the soul body's body. A sharp gust of wind accompanied the sound of the whip slashing through the air. Immediately after, the soul body's shrill and miserable shriek could be heard. This God-beating whip. Even cultivators were unable to bear the whip of this whip, let alone this soul body. In addition, Yu had already used her whip to weaken that soul body, and now that Fengjiu had also used her whip, that soul body became even more illusory, and that soul-locking bell in her hand also fell to the ground because of the intense pain and trembling of that soul body, giving out a sharp and clear clanging sound. Ooh! With a whoosh, the flames rushed forward and surrounded the soul body, burning it. In an instant, miserable screams could be heard, each one louder than the previous one. The spiritual power in Fengjiu's hand turned, and the bell that had fallen to the ground fell into her hand. She glanced at it, then looked at the soul body that had been burned to ashes and disappeared into the air. This was only a wisp of soul, not the person's actual body. Destroying this wisp of soul was equivalent to crippling the person's arm. Although the injury was serious, it was not fatal. Thus, this wisp of soul was destroyed, but the person was still alive. Seeing that person who was bitten by a lion was fleeing towards the rear courtyard, Yu hastily said, "There are still several people in the rear courtyard. Lion, stay behind to look after me, or you come with me," Fengjiu said, then glanced towards that lion, and simultaneously carried Yu towards the rear courtyard. "Quickly withdraw. Master's soul body has been extinguished." That middle-aged man who had fled to the rear courtyard shouted in panic. But before he could finish speaking, a flame changed into a sharp arrow and attacked from behind. Chapter 49:49. That person screamed as his body was penetrated by that fire arrow. His entire body fell to the ground while spitting out a mouthful of blood. He struggled on the ground while patting the burning flame on his body. However, that flame nevertheless couldn't be extinguished. Not long after, the sound of burning accompanied by that person's blood-curdling screams spread throughout the courtyard. Who is it? Although the 3 people in the backyard were injured, their injuries weren't fatal. On the contrary, Elder Gua and the U-clan ancestor were barely holding on. At this moment, the 2 of them were sent flying to the ground without any strength to resist. Just as the 3 people were about to finish off the 2 of them, they saw the person who came to report being burned to death by a ball of fire. Grandpa Gua, seeing old Gua whose whole body was covered with blood, Ur hastily called out. Old Gua gasped for breath and fell to the ground. He didn't even have the strength to answer her. Even the sight in front of him was somewhat strange. As for that old ancestor of U-clan, his vision turned black and he fainted. He only saw that someone was coming towards them, but he was already unable to clearly see who that person was. Fengjiu looked at those 2 old men on the ground. Then, with a burst of aura, even old Gua also fainted. Seeing this, those 3 people were somewhat startled. Just when they were about to ask her who she was, they felt a terrifying pressure along with a powerful aura pervading the air, which shook them to the point that they didn't even have the strength to open their mouth. Plop! Under that powerful pressure and aura, those 3 people knelt down with a plop, and cold sweat seeped into their back. They only felt their heart beating in horror, and their eyes looked towards that woman in horror. Who the hell was this person? How could her aura be so terrifying? Fengjiu handed over the whip to Yu and simultaneously walked forward. Arriving in front of those 3 people, he extended his finger and placed it in the space between their eyebrows. And under their shocked gaze, he began to search their soul. She wanted to know who was the real body of that soul, and what was the origin of these people. Dealing with this kind of people, the best method was to directly search their soul. Not long after, those 3 people fell down. Under Fengjiu's soul search, it was basically impossible for these 3 people to be alive. Seeing that everyone had fainted, Yu stepped forward and said, Mother, earlier, I don't know if it was a human or a ghost, but it said that I have an innate spiritual body. It said that I was very fragrant and wanted to catch me. Hearing this, Fengjiu rubbed her head and said, It's okay. Mother will take care of the rest. Don't worry. Because the 2 children had innate spiritual bodies, their bodies were covered and protected. Ordinary people would not be able to detect it. It was obvious that the true body of the soul body had an extraordinary cultivation level. However, no matter who the other party was, she would not let him off if he dared to have designs on her child. I will wake them up, and after informing them, we will return to the inn. Fengjiu looked towards Yu and said, Okay. Yu answered. Then her mother shot out 2 streams of qi. The 2 unconscious men groaned and slowly regained consciousness. Grandpa Gua, those people are dead, but I also have to leave. I came back to inform you. Yu said, then looking at the 2 people who were leaning against each other, she thought for a bit, then took out a medicinal pill and gave it to old Gua. This medicinal pill can cure your injury. After your injury is healed, quickly return home. Chapter 49:50. As far as he knew, other than those 3 disciples of Emperor Qing, there was no one else. Then who was this woman? How could she appear here and save them? Moreover, the strength of those people before was not weak, especially that soul. Was it also destroyed? Just by the strength of this woman alone? Many thanks for the grace of saving us. May I know how to address our benefactor? Elder Gua asked as he came back to his senses. His gaze landed on the woman as he tried to guess her identity and her relationship with Cloud 7. It's just a small matter. Fengjiu said, nodding to him, goodbye. Saying that, she led Yu to the front. Goodbye, Grandfather Gua. Cloud 7 waved her hand and shouted. As for the old ancestor of Yu family who had already woken up, she automatically ignored him. Outside, Feng Jiu helped the unconscious Songmi up from the ground and led you out of the U residence to the inn. Because those people were already dead, the enchantment and formation of the U residence also automatically disappeared. Elder Gua felt a little better after taking the medicinal pill, so he supported himself against the wall and stood up. He went forward to help Elder Yu up. As for the rest, they could only wait until tomorrow to deal with it. Hao and Mu Chun were waiting for their mother to come back in the inn. Both of them looked at the window from time to time until a few figures rushed in through the window. Both of them were startled. Mother, what happened? Something happened in the U residence. When Sister Me, and I arrived there, we saw that the U residence had been set up with a boundary in formation. The people inside were either unconscious or dead. We were also trapped inside. Sister Me's soul was extracted by that thing in order to save me. Fortunately, Mother came, otherwise I would also be taken away. You said from the side. Although she was small, her words clearly told them the matter. At this time, Feng Jiu had already placed Song Mi on the bed. She took her pulse and frowned, then said to Hao and Mu Chun, I will help to treat her wound. Let the waiter bring in some clear water. Okay, I will go. Hao immediately responded and went out first. He did not let the waiter bring it in. Instead, he personally brought the water in and placed it by the bed. At this time, Mu Chun had already pulled open the screen beside the bed and retreated outside. Hao and Mu Chun were both little boys, so they retreated to wait outside the screen. Yu stood by the bedside, watching her mother help me treat her wound. When her clothes were taken off, and seeing those big and small injuries, Yu's little fist slightly clenched and said, if it wasn't for Big Sister Me, blocking for me, perhaps now the one injured would be me. Mother, will Big Sister Me be all right? Most of the wounds on her body are superficial, and her internal injuries aren't that serious either. It's not a big problem for me to treat her, but she's currently in a soul-separated state. Her body is here, but her soul has been extracted. Feng Jiu said slowly as he treated Song Mi's wounds. Hearing this, Yu anxiously said, then can Divine Soul return? Didn't Mother bring back something called the Soul Locking Bell? Big Sister Mi's Divine Soul is inside that bell. Because of this Soul Locking Bell, Yu clan got into trouble. Feng Jiu said, then with a flip of her hand, that small and exquisite thing appeared in her palm. Chapter 49:51. Hearing these words, Feng Jiu was startled for a moment. Then with a smile, she said, this thing is not an evil thing. Moreover, it is also an uncommon treasure. She smiled. Then looking at Yu, she said, there is no evil thing in this world. Only the human heart is evil. Her voice paused, then said, just like a knife, in your hand you use it to defend yourself. But in the hand of an evil person, it is used to kill people, but in the hand of Mir, she can use it to cook. Things are the same. The only difference is the person using it. Hearing this, Yu nodded her head, then crisply said, Mother, Yu understands and will also remember. Feng Jiu rubbed her head, then said, go outside and sit together with your two brothers. Mother will study this soul-locking bell and see how to release Mir's divine soul. Okay, Yu answered, then walked outside the screen. With her mother here, she didn't need to worry. Seeing her coming out, Hao and Mu Chun promptly pulled her to sit at the table, then asked, little sister, are you tired? Do you want to go and rest first? I'm not tired. Yu shook her head, then sitting at the table, she said, I will wait here for Big Sister Me to wake up. Then we will accompany you. Both of them said, and accompanied her to sit here. Inside the screen, Feng Jiu studied that exquisite soul-locking bell in her hand. Then, taking one of the bells, she poured in spiritual power and lightly shook it. Then a wisp of soul visible to naked eyes floated out. Seeing it was Song Mi, she immediately guided her soul to return to its place. Seeing the soul and body fusing together, she relaxed, then reached out her hand to check her pulse. After checking that there was no big problem, she got up and walked outside. Mother, how is it? Seeing her coming out, Yu promptly trotted forward. Her divine soul has already returned to its place. She will be able to wake up early tomorrow morning. Fengjiu said with a smile, then handed that soul-locking bell to Yu and said, "This is for you. Keep it. Perhaps you will have a use for it later." "Isn't this used to collect souls?" Yu asked, then took that soul-locking bell and played with it. The two small bells looked very exquisite, but this thing was used to lock the soul. Thinking that there might be ghosts and such things trapped inside, Yu frowned. Fengjiu smiled and said, "This is an extraordinary treasure. Not only can it lock the soul, it can also absorb the soul. Moreover, ghosts and evil beings won't dare to come close to you. After you bind this item with your blood, wear it. It won't hurt." Hearing her mother's words, Yu dripped a drop of her blood on that little thing, then wore it on her little hand. Seeing that little thing became just the right size after being worn on her wrist, she lightly shook it, and the two bells lightly swayed, issuing a clear and melodious sound. Yu couldn't help but smile. "Mother, look, it looks like a small bracelet. All right, you guys must be tired today. Go wash up and rest," Fengjiu said as he rubbed her head. Originally, he only wanted them to go to Yu Clan to say goodbye, but didn't expect that they would be involved in this matter. Fortunately, nothing major happened. Merely, they couldn't stay in this place for long, as they had to leave early tomorrow morning. If no one knew that Yu was the disciple of Emperor Qing, then it would be fine. But if they knew, then seeing them together, it would inevitably attract attention and investigation. Chapter 4952. The next morning, Mi woke up, but Fengjiu and the rest did not stay here for long and left around noon. Although the matter of Yu family happened last night, and at that time there was a barrier protecting them, so they did not alarm the people in the city. But this morning, all the powers and clans in the city received the news that something happened to Yu family. Only, other than the old ancestor of Yu family and Oldwa, no one knew how the matter was settled. And even more, didn't know who the person who settled this matter was. Half a month later, Fengjiu's flying ship stopped in a forest outside the city. She looked at the few people beside her, then kept the flying ship. "This place is not far from the city. You all can walk there," Fengjiu said, and rubbed the head of Yu beside her. "Master, can we also not let my father and the rest know about Master's identity?" Songmi asked. She had been recuperating on the flying ship, so her body had recovered very quickly. Because that soul's true body was in this territory, they had come here. Also, because her house was in the city just ahead, she had asked her to send them here. When the time came, she would go to work, and she would wait for her with the 3 children at her house. "Now is still not the time," Fengjiu said, looking at the 3 children. "Since we are already here, won't Master go in with us?" Songmi looked at her and asked. Fengjiu shook her head and said, "Just help me take care of the 3 of them. After I finish my business, I will come to Song family to pick you all up." She was preparing to take care of that power, so it was naturally not good to take the 3 children with her. And Mi family was here, so it was best to let the children stay with her at her home for a few days. "Mother, you don't need to worry about us. Master has given us experience. We have experience in surviving outside and dealing with danger," Howard said, so that she did not need to worry about them. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled, and her eyes were full of pampering. "Mother knows. You are the older brother. Look after them more." "All right, go. Listen to Sister Mi." "Okay. Mother, you have to be careful too. We'll be waiting for you at Sister Mi's place." Fengjiu nodded and looked at Songmi. "I'll leave it to you. Master, don't worry. I will take good care of them." Songmi said with a smile and waved at her. Only then did she lead the 3 children towards the city gates. Hao and Mu Chun. These 2 people protected Yu in the middle. As her elder brothers, each of them held one of her hands as they walked. At the side of these 3 people, Songmi followed, and her face was filled with joy and excitement. "I didn't expect to return home so soon. The last time I left, I thought it would be a few years before I came back." Her eyes were full of smiles. Looking at the familiar place, her heart also flew with joy. "When we get home, I'll get my brother and the others to cook for you," Songmi said to them. Yu's eyes shone, and looking at her, she said, "Sister Mi, are the things they cook so delicious?" In this period of time, She would cook delicious food for them every day. Those things were beautiful and beautiful, which made her mouth picky. Chapter 49:53. If we suddenly go like this, won't we be disturbing? How asked while looking at her. No, no. Songmi waved her hand and said, My family members are all very good. You all don't need to worry about being uncomfortable. While speaking, Songmi led them into the city, and while introducing them to some places in the city, she said, After going to my house to rest, if you want to come out to play at night, then I will take you out again, or tomorrow is also fine. At that time, I will take you to stroll around the city. There are many fun places in the city. Miss me, has returned. Long time no see, Miss me. Where did Miss me go? Seeing Songmi, some hawkers in the city greeted her with a smile. Seeing this familiar appearance, how trio were endlessly astonished. Songmi waved her hand to greet them, and at the same time said to the three people beside her, My family can be said to be unique in the city, so my status is naturally different from other families. In addition, we grew up here. So many people in the city know me. Three people suddenly understood and followed her walking. After walking through a bustling street, they saw her turning into a relatively quiet and secluded alley, while saying, The city is also divided into rich and powerful families' residents. See, in front of the alley, people living in this area are some of the city's aristocratic families' people. My house is in front, very easy to find. Seeing they were about to reach her house, Songmi quickened her pace, and leading them to her house, she said with a smile, My house is here. Then she stepped forward and knocked on the door. A middle-aged man stepped forward to open the door, and seeing Songmi standing outside, his face immediately showed a happy smile. Miss me has returned. Quickly come in. Quickly come in. Finished speaking, while opening the door to let her in, he shouted inside. Miss me has returned. Quickly report to master, madam, as well as young masters. How trio followed me in his song residence, and once they entered, they smelled a very fragrant smell. Three people couldn't help but look at each other, then looked all around. Ewer took a deep breath, then looking at Songmi, her eyes shone, and said, Big sister me, your house is so fragrant. It must be my third brother cooking something again. Me? Smiled and said, Just in time, we'll have something good to eat the moment we arrive. Let's go. I'll bring you to my third brother's kitchen to see what's there to eat. As she spoke, she led them to the backyard. Almost every master of the Song family had an independent big kitchen in their courtyard. Usually, they would study dishes in the kitchen in their backyard. When a middle-aged man saw Songmi, heading straight for the backyard, he called out, Miss me, aren't you going to meet Master and Madam first? They've been talking about you. I'll go later. Tell my parents that I'm in a third brother's courtyard to eat something. I'll be there in a while. Me? Said without even turning her head. Mississippi. When the maidservants saw her, they all bent their knees and bowed. They were a little surprised that she had brought 3 children back. This is my third brother's courtyard. Come, let's go to the kitchen. Me smiled and walked towards the kitchen, indicating for the 3 to follow. Chapter 49:54. It is indeed different. From the moment they came in until now, what they saw was not something that an ordinary aristocratic family would have. In the Song family, places like pavilions and terraces, or places by the artificial mountains and ponds, their buildings would have some animals or some fruits and vegetables as decorations. Moreover, those decorations were very lifelike, as if they were real. Just the layout of this residence alone was very unique. I want to know what me, Jiejia's third brother made. You, said and trotted to the kitchen. Seeing this, how? And Mu Chun hurriedly followed. In the kitchen, a man in green robes was holding something steaming hot in his hands. He said to Songmi, I just heard that you came back. I was thinking of going to see you later. I didn't expect you to come straight here. Just in time, come and try this new snack that third brother made. As soon as he said that, the man in green looked at the 3 children in surprise. He then looked at Songmi, and asked, You brought them back? Songmeer held his hand and smiled. Third brother, I smelled something delicious here, so I came directly. Then he looked at the three and said, These three are my friends. I met them this time. This is Yun Shun, this is Yun Yuan, and this is Yun Chi. Then he said to Hao and the others, This is my third brother, Song Yifan. Hearing this, the three looked at each other and said at the same time, Big brother Yifan. Me? Rarely brings friends back. You guys are the first friends she has brought back. Song Yifan smiled and gestured to the three. Come, sit here. I have freshly made desserts for you guys to try. Thank you, big brother Yifan. The three went to the table and sat down. The maid placed a small bowl, spoon, plate, and chopsticks in front of each of them. The things looked very delicate. You have to eat it like this. Be careful. The soup inside will burn you. Song Yifan said and picked up one with the chopsticks and put it on the spoon. The thin skin was not oily and was steaming. A burst of fragrance came out. Cut a corner to let the soup flow out. Drink the soup first, then eat this. He demonstrated, so the three children wouldn't burn their mouths. Third brother, isn't this the soup dumpling? Songmeer picked up one and asked. I improved it. The skin is thin and there's more meat. I also used the soup stock. Song Yifan said and looked at the three children. Although they were young, they behaved well. The two boys sat there with their backs straight. The way they ate naturally revealed a sense of nobility and elegance. The three of them are so young. Does their family know that you brought them home? Song Yifan asked and glanced at his sister, who was eating without a care for her image. They know, don't worry. I didn't kidnap a child. Mir said with a smile. She blew at the soup on the spoon and drank it. Delicious, really delicious. Yuer showed a satisfied smile and ate another one, while saying, Big brother Ifan, the dessert you made is really delicious. Eat more if you like. There's more to come. Chapter 49:55. We knew that little sister would come to your place the moment she came back. Song family's second son said with a smile and looked inside. When he saw his sister, he also saw the three children. I heard that little sister came back with three children. Is it them? So young? Song family's second son said and walked forward in large strides. Yiming, don't scare the children. Song family's matriarch said warmly and called out to her second son. I know, mother. I don't look scary, so how can I scare the children? Song Yiming laughed. Father, mother, eldest brother, second brother. Seeing them coming over, immediately put down her chopsticks and wiped her mouth. She stood up and threw herself at her mother. Mother, Mir missed you so much. She hugged her mother's neck and rubbed against her bosom. All right. You're already an adult, and you're still hugging your mother. Song family's patriarch Song Lingbo saw his daughter hugging his wife, and his eyelids twitched. He directly grabbed his daughter's collar and pulled her away. He said unhappily, Stand properly. If you don't behave properly all day, let's see how you can get married in the future. Father, why are you still so petty? I only hug mother for a while. So what? You hug my mother to sleep every night and my brothers, and I didn't bicker with you. Song Ermi said and stuck out her tongue at him. Song Lingbo shook his head and said to his wife beside him, You see. What is this child saying? Her skin is really itching. All right, Mir has been away from home for so long. It's rare for her to come back. Don't keep scolding her. Besides, there are 3 children here. Don't let others laugh at you. Song family's matriarch glared at him. Then she looked at the 3 children and said to Mir, Me, where did you bring them back? Does her family know? They know. Don't worry. Songmi held her mother's hand and said, Come, let me introduce you. How her trio saw the way Mir interacted with her family and the way she spoke. The 3 of them were stunned and somewhat stunned. They didn't expect that she was actually this kind of big sister Mir. This is my father. This is my mother. This is my eldest brother Song Yihong. This is my second brother Song Yiming. Finished speaking, she introduced the names of you and others. They're my friends. This time, I will be staying at home for a period of time. They will also be staying at home. Mir looked at them and said, Of course, that won't be a problem. It's rare for you to bring friends back, and their 3 children. Naturally, we have to treat them well. Song family head said, but you also know that your brothers sometimes go into the kitchen and don't come out for a few days, so you have to take care of them. Yes, yes, I know. Mir nodded. Song Yihong looked at the 3 children thoughtfully. After a pause, he said, their names are familiar. I heard that the 3 disciples of Emperor Qing also called them by these 3 names. Is there any connection? Hearing this, the Song family members looked at each other, then looked at the 3 children in surprise. Finally, they turned to Song Mir and asked silently. Song Mir was startled and asked in astonishment, Big brother, how do you know the names of the 3 disciples of Emperor Qing? Chapter 4956. After all, it was Emperor Qing who said it himself. At that time, he also asked around, so he knew most of the 3 disciples of Emperor Qing and their names. Today, the 3 people his sister brought back were very similar to the disciples of Emperor Qing in terms of age and name. That was why he asked this question. Brother Yihong, you are so smart. Our master is Emperor Qing. You are said with a smile. Since they were the family of Sister Mir, and they had guessed it, it was fine to admit it. Hearing this, the eyes of the people from the Song clan flashed. They didn't expect that it was really Emperor Qing's disciple. One should know that Emperor Qing was a great emperor. He was a legendary figure. People like them could only listen to his prestige. They didn't have the chance to meet him. They didn't expect to see his 3 disciples today. Seeing this, Mir quickly said, Father, mother, eldest brother, second brother, third brother, it's good that you know. Don't tell others. I know, but how do you know them? Song family head asked strangely. I will tell you later. I can't tell you now. Mir said mysteriously. Okay, take care of them. They rarely come to the city. Tomorrow, let your eldest brother and the others accompany you to the city. Song family head said, and said to Hao and the others, you can treat this as your own home. If you need anything, just ask me, and let her arrange it for you. Thank you, Uncle Song. Hao bowed. Thank you, Uncle Song. Mu Chun and Mu Yu imitated their elder brother and bowed to express their gratitude. Third brother, make some food for the children. When they are full, take them to rest for a while. Patriarch Song said, then looked at Song Mir and said, come with me. Then he turned around and walked back with his hands behind his back. Seeing this, Song Mi said to the 3, you eat at my third brother's place. I will come and take you to the yard in a moment. Then she said to Song Yifan, third brother, help me take care of them. Then she quickly left the yard. Seeing that their parents and little sister had left, the 3 Song brothers couldn't help but smile. Looking at the 3 children, the eldest Song brother said, come, sit here. Third brother, bring 2 more baskets of desserts. It just so happens that I'm hungry. All right, have a seat, he said and walked towards the kitchen. Big brother Yihong, did you all rely on cooking to increase your strength? You curiously asked. Our family is a family of culinary cultivators. We have our own set of cultivation methods. It's not that cooking can improve one's strength, but the dishes we make can improve one's strength and cultivation. It's just like medicinal pills. It might be easier for you to understand. Song Yihong smiled. You don't have to call us by our names. Just call us Big Brother Song, Second Brother Song, Third Brother Song, and that will do. Okay, the 3 of them answered. Looking at the 2 outstanding people, it was hard to imagine that men also liked to go to the kitchen. Songmi was called over by her father to ask about her experience on this trip. However, she kept her mouth shut and muddled through the questions. She ran to her third brother's courtyard and brought Hao and the others to rest in the courtyard. Chapter 4957. On the other side, after Fengjiu left, she headed in another direction. From the information she obtained from searching their souls, she knew that the force was rooted in Yaoyang City. If she wanted to find the person's real body from the scattered evidence points in Yaoyang City, she would have to investigate further. She sped along at an extremely fast speed. However, Yaoyang City was not close to this place, and she stopped to rest along the way, so she did not enter Yaoyang City's territory yet. While flying, she saw that the weather suddenly changed and the wind in the sky became stronger. After thinking for a moment, she decided to find a place to rest. After walking for a while, she didn't see any residential houses. She only saw a run-down temple at the foot of a mountain. However, when she saw the run-down temple, she frowned slightly and her footsteps came to a halt. The ruined temple was located in a remote area. It was currently noon, but there was still a gloomy aura around it. It was obvious that it was an extremely dangerous place. She only paused for a moment before walking toward the ruined temple. With her current cultivation and strength, a place like this and the baleful enrich would naturally not be able to harm her. Furthermore, this place was still within her territory. It would have been fine if she had not encountered such a place of baleful enrich, but since she had encountered it, she would naturally take the opportunity to clean it up. She arrived at the entrance of the dilapidated temple and walked in. Her gaze swept over the place, and she saw that there were already a few cultivators sitting cross-legged in the temple. When they saw her enter, they glanced at her before looking away. She withdrew her gaze and walked to a corner to sit against the wall. She took out some water from her space and drank it. She had changed her appearance and restrained her aura. She was dressed in simple green clothes, so even though she was a woman, she did not attract any attention. The gloomy aura in the ruined temple was not obvious, but it was not completely undetectable. Especially for cultivators, even if they could not see it, they could more or less sense it. Now, those cultivators were also resting in such a place. She wondered if they were too confident in their strength and cultivation. Or did they not notice the hidden danger in the ruined temple at all? After drinking 2 mouthfuls of water to moisten his throat, he listened to the wind gradually become stronger. The wind blew in the dilapidated temple and the sky darkened. It seemed that a heavy rain was inevitable. Although cultivators could use spiritual energy to protect their bodies, if it wasn't an extremely urgent matter, it was fine to stop and rest to avoid the rain. Moreover, this was a place filled with energy. Seeing that the storm was coming fiercely, she decided to take the opportunity to close her eyes and rest for a while. At that moment, she put away the water and closed her eyes to rest. The corner she was in was sheltered from the wind outside, and with the spiritual aura protecting her body, she didn't feel cold even though the wind was strong. After a while, he could faintly hear the sound of rain falling, gradually becoming louder and louder. The wind and rain were accompanied by the sound of muffled thunder. Perhaps it was because of the change in the weather and the howling of the wind and rain, but the atmosphere in the ruined temple gradually cooled down. Why is it getting colder and colder? This wind is giving me goosebumps. A cultivator in his 20s said as he rubbed his arms. Another person said, "There's a door over there. It'll probably be better if we use the door to block the wind." Chapter 49:58. I didn't think that there would be so many people passing by today. There are 2 carriages in front of us. They are probably here to take shelter from the rain. The cultivator in his 20s said in astonishment. He peeked through the crack in the door and saw that as their carriages drew closer, a person peeked out from the front carriage to take a look at the dilapidated temple before returning to sit in the carriage. At the same time, the 2 carriages and their entourage began to retreat until they stopped at the side of the road about 100 meters away. Strange, why are they retreating? The cultivator in his 20s said in surprise as he looked at the 2 carriages 100 meters away, as well as the entourage accompanying them. But they are probably afraid of this Fiend land and don't dare to come. A middle-aged cultivator sneered. He crossed his arms and closed his eyes to rest. A group of cowards. What Fiend land? The other 2 cultivators asked with knitted brows. It's this ruined temple. Didn't you notice that the enrich here is heavier and is accompanied by a wave of killing intent? As the middle-aged cultivator spoke, he glanced at the 2 and said, "It wasn't raining before, but now that it's raining, the enrich here is heavier and the aura is colder." When the 2 heard this, their expressions changed, and they immediately stood up. "We didn't notice it, but since this is a place like this, we naturally can't stay here for too long lest we bring trouble to ourselves." With that, the 2 walked towards the entrance of the ruined temple. They looked at the middle-aged cultivator who was still sitting, the young cultivator who was standing by the door with a confused expression, and the azure-clothed woman who was sleeping in the corner. After hesitating for a moment, the middle-aged cultivator kindly reminded them, "I heard my master say that enrich is not normal. If your cultivation isn't high enough, you'll be easily entangled by the enfiend. You should quickly leave, especially that young lady over there. She is a woman and will easily be entangled by the enfiend." Hearing this, Fengjiu opened her eyes and looked at the two. She nodded and said, "You two can leave." She remained sitting there without moving. Even a man isn't as brave as a woman. The middle-aged cultivator glanced at the two with disdain in his eyes. The two cultivators did not argue with him. Instead, they cupped their hands towards Fengjiu and bowed, saying, "Farewell, Mississippi. Take care." After saying that, they walked out. Once outside, the two of them used their spiritual power to protect their bodies. When the rain fell, it was blocked by the layer of spiritual power on their bodies, so they didn't get wet at all. Although using spirit force to protect their bodies consumed too much spirit force, the two of them had no other choice. They just wanted to get as far away from this place as possible, so they used spirit force to protect their bodies while flying through the wind and rain. There were 2 carriages by the side of the mountain road. Apart from the people in the 2 carriages who could shelter themselves from the rain, there were 7 or 8 people who were accompanying the carriages. At the side of the road, a small tent was set up to shelter them from the rain. The wind and rain were heavy, and the muddy road was difficult to travel on. In order to prevent the carriage from flipping over in the wind and rain and the horses from running away, they could only stop here and wait for the rain to lessen before continuing. At this moment, in the carriage in front, the middle-aged man helped cover the old man lying down with a blanket and said, "Father, the wind and rain are a little heavy right now. We can only wait for the wind and rain to subside a little before leaving." "Yes." The old man's eyes were closed and his face was pale. He answered weakly. Chapter 49:59. The baleful enrich in that place is too strong. The middle-aged man frowned and said, "But aren't there people hiding from the rain there? If they aren't afraid, then we don't have to be." The man in his 30s said. When he heard that it was a place filled with baleful enrich, he didn't think much of it. "Listen to your big brother." The old man didn't open his eyes and said weakly. He believed in his eldest son's decision. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't enter that place, they wouldn't have to stop by the roadside. Hearing his father's words, the man in his 30s didn't say anything else. "You stay here and take care of father. I'll go to the back and inform them. Then I'll go to the ruined temple to see who's inside and warn them." The middle-aged man said and prepared to get off the carriage. When the man in his 30s heard this, he couldn't help but smile. At the same time, he pulled him back and said, "Big brother, why do you care so much about those people? Maybe they aren't afraid of the baleful enrich. Besides, that has nothing to do with us. We're not related to them in any way. Why do you care so much? Instead of worrying about them, why don't you think of a way? Look, the wind and rain is so strong that our carriage is shaking. Don't tell me it's going to be overturned by the wind." The middle-aged man looked at him and said, "When you're outside, there's no harm in forming good karma. Reminding them is nothing to us, but to them, it might save their lives." As soon as he finished speaking, he felt the wind and rain outside. The wind was blowing and the carriage was shaking gently. He said, "I'll get off the carriage and see if there's a place to hide from the wind and rain. This storm is fierce and a little strange. I don't know when it will stop. Go, be careful." The old man opened his eyes and looked at him and said, "I'll be right back." As he spoke, he got off the carriage. He first went to the back of the carriage to inform them before heading towards the ruined temple. However, he didn't get too close. Instead, he shouted from outside with his spiritual aura, "Friends in the ruined temple, the baleful enrich in this ruined temple is a little heavy. It's not a good place to hide from the wind and rain. You should leave and find another place." He just shouted and didn't wait for the people inside to respond. He followed the road ahead and prepared to check out the situation. His strength was not bad, and with spirit force protecting his body, he wasn't afraid of the wind and rain. However, when he heard the muffled thunder, he couldn't help but look back and hesitate. He felt that there was something wrong with this storm. After walking for a long distance, he still didn't find any residences, so he could only return to the carriage to take shelter from the wind and rain. Seeing that the sky was still darkening and the wind and rain didn't lessen, he thought for a moment and ordered the people accompanying him to drive the carriage into the small forest. Thus, the group of people went into the small forest to avoid the wind and rain. They were also further away from the ruined temple. In the ruined temple, Fengjiu's lips curled up slightly. It seemed that the world was not filled with heartless people. At least, he had met two people who were kind enough to warn him in this ruined temple. As the sound of the wind and rain grew louder, the sound of the wind in the ruined temple grew louder, and the air grew colder. She stood up and walked towards the door of the ruined temple. The young cultivator, standing by the door, had a conflicted expression on his face. She didn't know what he was thinking, but when he saw Fengjiu stand up and walk to the door, he thought that she wanted to leave and quickly made way for her. Fengjiu stood by the door and looked outside. This storm was indeed strange. It didn't seem like a normal storm, but more like... Chapter 4960. She immediately turned around and saw the middle-aged man twitching on the ground. Around him, a wave of baleful enrich circled around. "Martial uncle!" The young cultivator cried out in alarm, but he didn't dare to step forward. Instead, he stepped back and turned around to run into the wind and rain. Fengjiu glanced at the cultivator, who ran out and frowned. In the next moment, a flame condensed in her palm and flew out towards the twitching middle-aged cultivator. Ah! Faintly, a mournful and sharp cry could be heard. The moment the flames attacked, the baleful enrich around the middle-aged cultivator seemed to have come into contact with something terrifying and quickly retreated, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Fengjiu stepped forward, and with a thought, the flame around the middle-aged cultivator split into two. One floated above his head while the other two floated to the bottom of his feet. As the flames continued to burn, the middle-aged cultivator's hair was burned to ashes. The heat from the flames at the bottom of his feet forced back the strand of baleful enrich in his body. A strand of baleful enrich that was visible to the naked eye emerged from the top of his bald head before being burned away by the flames. Boom! In the sky, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck down. The place where it struck was a willow tree behind the ruined temple. She sensed that the lightning wasn't ordinary lightning from the wind and rain, but the lightning of tribulation. She immediately turned her palm, and several clusters of flames floated in the corners of the ruined temple. At the same time, she stepped out of the ruined temple and went to the back of the ruined temple. The middle-aged cultivator on the ground woke up not long after Fengjiu walked out. He seemed to be in a state of shock and quickly looked around. When he saw that he was alone, his face paled. Thinking of the feeling of losing control from before, he no longer cared about the wind and rain outside and quickly ran outside. However, when he ran to the entrance of the ruined temple, he was bounced back. It was as if there was something invisible blocking him, preventing him from leaving. "Help! Help! Let me out! Let me out!" he shouted, trying to use his own strength to break through the enchantment formed by the baleful energy. However, the wind and rain outside were heavy, and the muffled thunder was even louder. The baleful energy inside seemed to have been awakened, howling and roaring in this ruined temple. However, it seemed to be trapped by something, unable to break free. Behind the ruined temple, Fengjiu stood in the wind and rain. Due to the protection of his spiritual aura, the rain automatically avoided him. Her gaze fell on the willow tree that had been struck by lightning. She looked at the dense, baleful enrich that was spreading out from the center of the willow tree. Originally, he felt that there was something wrong with the wind and rain. Now, it seemed that the source of the baleful enrich in the dilapidated temple was under the willow tree. Moreover, the baleful enrich wanted to use the willow tree to take shape. One had to know that the willow tree itself had the ability to ward off evil spirits. However, at this moment, the baleful Een energy was coiling around the willow tree. It could be seen that the baleful Een energy was not simple. In the small forest, the middle-aged man who had been slightly startled by the sound of thunder was originally resting in the carriage. At this moment, he stuck his head out and looked towards the ruined temple. He sighed in his heart. That strange movement could even be felt here. It was likely that the people in the ruined temple would not be able to survive. Chapter 4961. Yes. When the middle-aged man heard this, he hurriedly returned to the carriage and helped him sit up. The 30-year-old man next to him pulled up the blanket. "Father, are you uncomfortable lying down for too long? It's good that you have a seat. I've just made some tea. Have some hot tea," the 30-year-old man said as he prepared to make a cup of tea for him. The old man waved his hand and lifted the curtain to look in the direction of the ruined temple. He frowned and said weakly, "This storm and the sound of thunder is probably the tribulation of lightning caused by the baleful Enshi in the ruined temple. If the baleful Enshi is allowed to take shape, I'm afraid there will be no end to it." Hearing this, the middle-aged man was silent for a while before saying, "Father, the baleful Enshi is unstoppable. I'm afraid that we can't stop it." "No, it seems like someone has made a move," the old man said and looked at him. "Go take a look and help that person." "Father, how can you let Big Brother go? What if something happens to Big Brother? Besides, we've already retreated here. Whether the baleful Enshi is baleful Enshi or not, it has nothing to do with us. Why should we care?" The 30-year-old man said with a face of disapproval. "I'll go take a look. If I can help, I'll help," the middle-aged man said and said to the other man, "Take good care of Father." Seeing this, the 30-year-old man frowned. Seeing that he couldn't stop him, he didn't say anything else and only said, "Big Brother, just go take a look. If you can't help, then don't help. You'll get into trouble." He paused for a moment and said, "Also be careful. If you see any signs of trouble, then quickly retreat." Hearing this, a smile appeared on the middle-aged man's dignified face and said, "Got it." Saying this, he nodded to his father and got off the carriage. He left the small forest and headed in the direction of the ruined temple. At this moment, Fengjiu was using flames to set up a formation to purify the baleful Enshi. The visible baleful Enshi was attached to the willow tree. The willow branches danced wildly at this moment, as if a ferocious beast was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. "Who are you? Why are you stopping me from taking shape? Why?" A sharp and cold voice filled with hatred and unwillingness rang out. The baleful Enshi tried to break free from the restraints of the formation formed by the flames, but it was ineffective. Bang, bang, bang. The roots of the willow tree, which were deeply rooted in the ground, were filled with Enshi. They abruptly emerged from the ground, and the soil and rainwater poured out from the ground. Carrying the Enshi, they attacked Fengjiu. Fengjiu's expression was indifferent. She just glanced at the ground and didn't even move her feet. She just lifted one foot. When the willow tree roots suddenly burrowed out from the ground, she seemed to gently step back. Bang! Ah! That foot seemed to be light, but it seemed to contain an extremely powerful and terrifying force. In particular, the bottom of her foot caused a ball of flames to ripple outwards like water. The willow tree roots were caught off guard, and the baleful Enshi, which had already been mostly burned away, was burned away. The baleful Enshi that permeated the surroundings, as well as the baleful Enshi in the ruined temple, all condensed into a ball at the willow tree and let out shrill screams. Chapter 4962. He did not expect to see a green-robed woman here. She looked to be in her 20s, but he did not expect her cultivation to be so powerful. He had a decent cultivation base and could see that there was baleful Enshi in this place. Naturally, he also knew how difficult it was to get rid of the baleful Enshi. He thought that the person who did this would be an elderly senior, but he did not expect it to be a woman. He suppressed the emotions in his heart and hid the shock and astonishment in his eyes. His eyes flashed as he looked at the flames under the woman's feet in the wind and rain. If he was not mistaken, it should be the heavenly flame. Only the heavenly flame had the ability to burn away the baleful enrich. Throughout history, most of the cultivators who possessed the natal heavenly flame were either alchemists or weapon refiners. Which one was this woman? Which type was she? How could she have such a powerful cultivation? Fengzhou only glanced at the person behind her indifferently before her gaze landed on the willow tree. The flames on the ground swayed and spread towards the center of the willow tree. The ground burned by the flames, not to mention the rain. Even the soil was scorched black and cracked, not to mention the roots hidden in the soil. In the air, the unwilling roar had become somewhat weak. However, it still persisted and asked over and over again, "Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?" The middle-aged man behind heard the echoing voice, and his heart trembled. He looked at the green-robed woman. Not only did the Heishi want to know, but he also wanted to know who this woman was. "It's your bad luck to have met me." Fengzhou spoke slowly. Her voice was cold and indifferent. As her voice fell, the flames on the ground had already reached the center of the willow tree and climbed up along the willow tree. A hissing sound accompanied by wisps of black smoke filled the air. After rising into the air, it dissipated between heaven and earth. At the same time, the roaring voice gradually quieted down. Just as the willow tree was completely burned, the originally gloomy and storm-like sky gradually dissipated. The dark clouds that shrouded the sky became weaker, the rain stopped, and the blue sky and white clouds appeared after the storm. There was also a rainbow that stretched across the ruined temple. At this moment, a flame carrying a small rectangular box flew over and stopped in front of her. Fengzhou raised his eyebrows and took a look. He saw that the so-called small rectangular box was actually a small coffin made of ebony wood. "I see." It turned out that the dark enrich was being nurtured by the black divine wood. No wonder it dared to transform into a willow tree. If she had not happened to pass by here today and encountered this matter, it was likely that no one would have been able to stop the dark enrich from taking shape. With a twist of her hand, the small coffin fell into the flame. Not long after, the fragrance of the black formation divine would fill the air. In the end, not even ashes were left behind as they disappeared into the flame. She turned around and glanced at the dilapidated temple. Originally, he had planned to burn down the temple with fire after taking shelter from the rain and burn away the Yin energy. Now that the Yin energy had been removed, it did not matter whether the temple was burned down or not. Chapter 4963. "Miss, please wait." The middle-aged man who had regained his senses hurriedly stepped forward. Seeing that she had stopped, he clasped his hands and bowed. "Miss is righteous. Please accept Huangfu Zhao's bow." Fengzhou turned sideways and did not accept his bow. Instead, she said, "You're too kind. It was just a coincidence." This baleful enrich was extremely powerful. Huangfu Zhao admitted that he did not have full confidence in dealing with it. Miss, however, was able to extinguish it with a flick of your finger. Huangfu Zhao is sincerely convinced of your skill. He praised. Fengzhou did not speak, only looked at him. Just as Huangfu Zhao was about to speak again, he heard a call from behind him. "Big brother, are you all right?" He turned around and saw that the carriage that was originally parked in the small forest had unknowingly arrived at the main road. At this moment, the curtain of the carriage was lifted, and he saw his fourth brother calling out to him. Inside the carriage, he could faintly see that his father was also looking in his direction. "Goodbye," Fengzhou said, then took a deep breath and left on her sword. Hearing the sound of farewell, Huangfu Zhao turned around and saw that her figure had already disappeared into the clouds. After a while, he could not see her figure anymore. Then, he quickly walked towards the carriage. "Father." He boarded the carriage, looked at his father, and said, "I did not expect that the one who extinguished the baleful enrich was a girl. Unfortunately, I was just about to ask her about her master, but I did not expect to miss it." He sighed and said, "That girl might be an alchemist." He felt that it was a pity that he missed such a good opportunity to ask. An alchemist who could control the heavenly fire would probably be of a very low level. Furthermore, her cultivation level was unfathomable. All in all, at this moment, there was only the word pity in his heart. If fate wills it, we will meet again. If not, even if we let you know about her master, it has nothing to do with us. The old man said in a weak voice. He covered his mouth with one hand and coughed. Now that the wind and rain have stopped, brother, can we go? The man in his 30s said. Let's go. As he said, he signaled the carriage driver to continue driving. At this moment, a middle-aged cultivator ran out of the ruined temple, mumbling something under his breath. His face was covered in dust, and there was not a single hair on his head. He looked somewhat comical. Martial uncle, you're still alive? A young man who came out of nowhere shouted and ran towards the middle-aged man. The middle-aged cultivator suddenly revealed a silly smile. He pushed the young man aside and walked forward while muttering to himself. The young man seemed to be stunned for a moment before he hurriedly followed. As for what he was saying, no one cared. Several days later, in a restaurant, Fengjiu was sitting on the first floor, pouring wine and listening to the people in the restaurant discussing in low voices. Do you know what happened last night? I've heard about it. Didn't they say that a few of the branches of a certain force were destroyed? Now, the people of that force are investigating. Even the big families and forces in the city are alarmed, but no one knows who did it. To be able to destroy those nests in one night, it must have been a whole team, and it must have been premeditated. Fengjiu took a sip of wine and called the waiter to settle the bill. Then he got up and walked out. Chapter 4964. Fengjiu went to the inn to rest and only came out in the evening. At this time, the sky was not completely dark yet, but there were already night stalls set up on the streets. Because it was not the peak hour of the night market, there were not many people on the streets. Just as she was walking slowly, she saw Huangfu Xiao, who she met a few days ago at the ruined temple, hurriedly walking towards her. Her steps were light and slow, but she did not stop walking. Instead, he cupped his hands and called out to her. Miss, I did not expect to meet you here. Fengjiu stopped and looked at him, asking, What is it? After we parted that day, I did not know when I would be able to see you again. Today, a guard of my residence went out to do some work and saw you entering the inn. He specially came back to report to me. When I heard the news, I hurriedly came to pay my respects and invite you to my residence for a chat. Huangfu Xiao said. Seeing that she did not speak, he hurriedly said, It's like this. My Huangfu family is one of the aristocratic families in this city. Since you are here, I would like to play host. Also, I would like to invite you to treat my father. Hearing this, Fengjiu raised her eyebrows. Treat? How do you know that I am a doctor? Huangfu Xiao doesn't know. It's just that I've seen your abilities that day and the faint medicinal fragrance on your body. That's why I made this guess. He continued, Whether you can cure my father or not, Huangfu Xiao will be eternally grateful. Looking at the person in front of her, Fengjiu's eyes flashed. This person reminded her that day, so she could see that he was kind. Now that they met again in this city, there was no harm in helping him. However, what she was about to do, after thinking for a while, the corners of his lips curled up as he said, Lead the way. Hearing this, Huangfu Xiao was slightly startled. He did not expect that she would actually agree to his bold request. Delighted, he immediately gestured for her to follow him. Please follow me. As he spoke, he personally led the way for her. Although there were not many people on the street, it was strange to see this scene. Someone curiously muttered, Isn't that the head of the Huangfu family? Why is he so respectful to that girl? That girl is dressed in green and has an ordinary appearance. She doesn't look like someone who is related to a big family like the Huangfu family. The people on the street were discussing in low voices. On the other side, Huangfu Xiao personally invited Fengjiu into his residence. Even though it was already late at night, he did not bring her directly to his father's courtyard. Instead, he invited her to sit in the hall. I still haven't asked for your name? He asked. His gaze landed on the elegant woman in green. His Huangfu clan was a 100-year-old clan with a very high status. Even cultivators from other clans would look at the mansion carefully. However, this woman's expression was indifferent. She was neither arrogant nor servile, as if nothing could enter her eyes. She appeared very normal. He guessed that she might be a descendant of a century-old aristocratic family. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so calm. Fengjiu took a sip of tea before putting it down and slowly said, "My husband's name is Xianyuan. You can call me Madame Xianyuan." Hearing this, Huang Fushao was startled. He quickly stood up and apologized. "I didn't know before and kept calling you Mississippi. I hope Madame Xianyuan will forgive me." Chapter 4965. "Don't worry," Fengjiu said and looked at him with a faint smile. "You guessed correctly. I am a doctor and an alchemist. I saw your father's condition from afar that day. It shouldn't be some kind of illness, but an old illness that has taken a toll on his lifespan." Hearing this, Huang Fushao looked at her in shock, not knowing what to say. She actually guessed his father's condition from a glance from afar a few days ago. With this kind of ability, he had been taking his father everywhere to seek medical treatment, but he had never met such a person. For a moment, his emotions were in turmoil. He stared at her, and other than shock, there were also guesses and doubts in his eyes. A person with this kind of ability could not be an unknown person. She did not use her own name, but used her husband's surname. Just who was this Madame Xianyuan? Seeing his shocked expression, Fengjiu smiled. "I can cure your father's old illness and prolong his life. However, I need you to do something for me." Huang Fushao suppressed his shock and did not immediately agree. Instead, he frowned and asked with a serious expression, "May I ask what Madame Xianyuan needs me to do?" Fengjiu held his teacup and gently scraped the tea inside with the lid. He said slowly, "Release the news that you have a 1,000-year-old dark soul ginseng." 1,000-year-old dark soul ginseng? Is that the legendary 1,000-year-old dark soul ginseng that can revive the dead and cultivate the soul? He asked in surprise. "That's right." Fengjiu nodded and looked at him with praise. He did not think that he would know about this kind of treasure. Huang Fushao frowned and asked, "What is Madame Xianyuan's intention? Not to mention that we don't have such a treasure in our residence. Just this news alone is enough to bring disaster to our Huangfu clan." That kind of heavenly treasure was not only able to revive the dead. If this news was released, their Huangfu clan would never have a day of peace. "I won't let your Huangfu clan get into trouble," Fengjiu said. "No, Madame Xianyuan, you don't know the severity of this matter." He shook his head. This matter could not be settled with just a word from her. Just because she said she would not let the Huangfu clan get into trouble, it would not mean that they would not get into trouble. Seeing him like this, Fengjiu only smiled. "Take a look." When Huang Fushao heard her words, he was confused. What did she mean? A wisp of spiritual energy was released from her body, and between her eyebrows, a cyan lotus flower with a flame pattern slowly emerged. His eyes widened in shock. His usual calmness and composure had vanished into nothingness at this moment. The Empress. His legs involuntarily fell to his knees. He opened his mouth and stuttered, "Phone, master." Fengjiu didn't intend to reveal her identity, but if she didn't do so, Huang Fushao wouldn't believe that she had the ability to protect the Huangfu clan. Therefore, she made the green lotus seal appear between her eyebrows to show her identity. Chapter 4966. I do. He hurriedly said, sweat appearing on his forehead due to his nervousness. "Get up and speak." She gestured. However, after he got up, he did not dare to sit in the seat of honor, but instead sat opposite her. But as soon as he spoke, Fengjiu raised her hand and said, "Don't reveal my identity for now. Just call me Madame Xianyuan." Yes. He wiped his sweat and hurriedly replied. He then asked, "Madame Xianyuan, what do you need me to do? Is it enough to just release the news?" If he had been hesitant and worried before, then after knowing her identity, those worries no longer existed. Sitting there now, he still felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. That high and mighty existence, which was unreachable to them, had actually come to their Huangfu family and sat in front of him like this. Their Huangfu family's ancestors' graves were probably smoking green smoke, right? You, Feng Jiu slowly said, and explained the matter in detail to him. After hearing her words, he nodded and immediately said, "Yes, I'll immediately arrange it." As he spoke, he said, "Madam Xianyuan, it's already late. Why don't I bring you to the courtyard to rest first? Just call anyone to bring me there. Go and do what I told you to do. Tomorrow morning, I'll go and take a look at your father." She stood up and said, "Yes," he gratefully replied, and called for the housekeeper to personally bring her to the courtyard to rest. After she left, he hurriedly ordered the servants to take care of her carefully, and then hurriedly went to his father's courtyard. Once he entered the courtyard, he dismissed all the servants and even set up a soundproof barrier. The old man lying on the bed saw him like this and asked, "What happened?" "Father, it's a joyous occasion. The heavens have blessed our Huangfu family." He could not hide the excitement and joy on his face. He hurriedly went forward to help his father up and placed a pillow on his waist. His face was full of joy. "What's the matter?" Seeing his eldest son, who usually did not show his emotions, so excited and happy, the old man's heart was slightly moved and he was somewhat curious. "Father, an important guest has come to our Huangfu clan." He hurriedly explained the situation in detail to his father. After hearing his words, the old man's face lit up with joy. His eyes were filled with a light and vigor that had never been there before. He held his hand and said excitedly, "Is that so? Was it really him? Are you sure? Are you sure? I can't be wrong. She is the empress of this world, the Phoenix Master. News about her has already been secretly spread among the clans in the various cities. How could I be wrong?" Huangfu Shao said, his face full of joy. "Good, good, good." The old man said good 3 times in a row. He held his son's hand and patted the back of his hand. "This is really a blessing from the heavens for our Huangfu family. You have to do this well. You can't make any mistakes." "I know." Huangfu Shao nodded and paused for a moment before continuing. "However, she didn't tell me why she wanted to do this. However, I'm guessing that it has something to do with someone in our city." Chapter 4967. Remember to take good care of her. Don't be rude. The old man reminded him worriedly. "Father, don't worry. I know. I've already told the servants to take good care of her." Huangfu Shao said. The old man paused and thought of something, then said, "Let Yunxue take care of her. If she takes good care of her, it might be an opportunity for her." Hearing this, Huangfu Shao was slightly surprised. After a moment of silence, he said, "Father, wouldn't it be too much to ask Yunxue to take care of her? I'm worried that Madame Xianyuan will be unhappy." The old man shook his head and smiled. "That won't happen. Yunxue is the calmest and quietest person among the younger generation. Letting her serve Madame Xianyuan is a display of the importance our Huangfu family places on Madame Xianyuan. Secondly, Yunxue is a child who knows how to take care of others. As for whether she can catch that person's eye, that will depend on her." Hearing this, Huangfu Shao said, "All right, I'll make the arrangements now. Father, rest early. Madame Xianyuan will come to treat you tomorrow morning." Go. The old man nodded and relaxed. The worry that had gathered between his eyebrows because of his body finally dissipated at this moment. Removing the soundproof barrier, Huangfu Shao left the courtyard and went to another courtyard. That night, he was excited. After making all the arrangements, it was already late at night. However, even though it was late at night, he still did not feel sleepy. As the eldest daughter of the Huangfu family, Huangfu Yunxue had received the best training from the Huangfu family since she was young. Whether it was her cultivation or her temperament, she was considered outstanding among her sisters. However, she was not competitive and did not talk much. Even though she was the eldest daughter of the Huangfu family, she did not have much of a presence. The only thing that could be said was that the old master liked her very much. When he was healthy, he often gave her pointers on her cultivation. When her father suddenly asked her to take care of an important guest, even someone as calm as her was stunned. She did not understand and was confused. When she asked, she did not get an answer. She only got one sentence from her father. This is an incomparably honorable guest. It is your good fortune to be able to serve her. She couldn't fall asleep after hearing such a random sentence. She had already sent her personal maidservant to inquire about it. Only then did she know that she had been frightened for nothing. She originally thought that the guest she had to serve was a man, but she didn't expect it to be a madam. After knowing that the other party was a madam, she felt relieved. After packing up early in the morning, she went to the madam's courtyard alone to make preparations. When Feng Jiu had just gotten out of bed, he heard a gentle and pleasant voice coming from outside. "Is madam awake?" She, who had always been carefree, opened the door without washing up. As soon as the door opened, she saw a slender young girl standing at the door. She was about 16 or 17 years old, wearing a plain dress. Her appearance was extremely outstanding, and her whole person exuded a clean aura. At this moment, there was a faint smile on her beautiful face. When she saw her, she gracefully curtsied towards her. "Huangfu Yunxiu greets madam." Feng Jiu, who had just woken up, squinted his eyes lazily. "You are the eldest daughter of the Huangfu family." Chapter 4968. Wait outside. Feng Jiu didn't say much, but after closing the door, she washed up and changed her clothes inside. After a while, she walked out and saw that breakfast was already served in the courtyard. "Madam, I asked the kitchen to cook some porridge and stir-fry some side dishes. Have a taste and see if they are to your liking." Huangfu Yunxue spoke softly and walked to the table. She scooped a small bowl of porridge for her and then retreated to the side to wait. Feng Jiu saw that she was well-mannered, skillful, and natural, so she walked forward and sat down. Looking at the porridge and several delicious side dishes in front of her, her eyes flashed slightly. She didn't say anything, but took a spoonful of porridge with a spoon and ate some side dishes. She ate slowly and didn't need to say anything. When the porridge in her bowl was finished, Huangfu Yunxue, who was waiting at the side, came forward to add more porridge for her. After she put down her chopsticks and saw that she was full, Huangfu Yunxue quietly ordered the servant girl behind her to clean up the table. "Miss Huangfu, isn't it too unfair for you to come and serve me?" After Feng Jiu finished eating, he stood up and walked a few steps in the courtyard. He looked at Huangfu Yunxue. Huangfu Yunxue was slightly startled. She looked at her and then lowered her eyes and said softly, "Father said that Madam is an important guest of the Huangfu family and cannot be neglected. Therefore, he asked Yunxue to come and take care of you. For Father to give such instructions, it shows that Madam is of noble status. Therefore, Yunxue doesn't feel wronged." Feng Jiu smiled and didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at Huangfu Xiao, who had arrived at the entrance of the courtyard. "Madam Xinyuan." Huangfu Xiao bowed to her and looked at his daughter from the corner of his eyes. "Lead the way," Feng Jiu said and walked forward. "Okay, Madam Xinyuan, this way please," he hurriedly said and made a gesture to invite Feng Jiu to another courtyard. Huangfu Yunxue paused for a moment, then followed them. She was 3 steps behind them at a leisurely pace. The servants in the Huangfu family's old master's courtyard had already been dismissed. Huangfu Xiao led Feng Jiu into the courtyard. He paused and turned to Huangfu Yunxue. "You can wait outside the courtyard. Without my permission, no one else is allowed to enter." Upon hearing this, Huangfu Yunxue was slightly surprised, but she did not ask any further. Instead, she gently nodded and replied, "Yes, Father." After entering the inner room, Huangfu Xiao led them to the bed in the inner room. Only then did Huangfu Xiao say to Feng Jiu, "Madam Xinyuan, this is my father. Due to his health, he has been bedridden and unable to rise to greet you. Please do not take offense." "It's all right," Feng Jiu said and walked forward to look at the old man on the bed. He opened his eyes and looked at her. It was the old man she had seen at the ruined temple that day. This old man greets Madam Xinyuan. His voice was weak and feeble, but his aged face was filled with excitement when he saw Feng Jiu. "Give me your hand," Feng Jiu said and sat down on a chair beside the bed. "Thank you." He extended his hand. Huang Fuxiao also stepped forward to help. Feng Zhou quietly felt the old man's pulse. After a while, he withdrew his hand and took out a silver needle from his space. He said to Huang Fuxiao, "I will perform acupuncture on him. Wait outside the room and don't let anyone disturb me." Chapter 4969. In the room, the old man saw Feng Zhou pick up a silver needle and insert it into his acupoint. Then, he fell into a deep sleep. Feng Zhou only took out other silver needles and inserted them into the old man's acupoints after seeing that he had fallen asleep. At the same time, the green lotus chi in his body slowly surged and entered the old man's body through the silver needles in his hand, healing his old illness. Time always seemed to pass very slowly while waiting. Huang Fuxiao, who was guarding outside the door, paced back and forth. After an unknown amount of time, the door opened. Seeing Feng Zhou come out, he hurriedly went up and asked, "Madam Xinyuan, how is he? He can get out of bed tomorrow and walk around. He'll recover 70% in 7 days," Feng Zhou said and walked in. "He's unconscious now and won't wake up until tomorrow. Can I go in and see my father now?" he asked. "Yes, just don't wake him up," Feng Zhou said and walked out. Seeing her leave, Huang Fu Yunxue glanced at her grandfather's courtyard. After thinking for a while, he did not enter the courtyard and left with the madam. The next day, the streets and alleys of Yaoyang City, and even the inns and restaurants, were all talking about one thing. "Have you heard? The old man of the Huangfu family said he can get out of bed and walk around." "Yes, I've heard. He's been lying in bed for a year or two, right? I didn't expect his body to get better all of a sudden. What do you know? It's because the head of the Huangfu clan took him everywhere to find a doctor, and he accidentally found a treasure called the 1,000-year black spirit ginseng. It's said that this thing could be considered a heavenly treasure. I heard that the reason why the head of the Huangfu clan was able to get better was because of a root of the 1,000-year black spirit ginseng. Is that true? A root can make a person who's been lying in bed for a year or two and could die at any time better. It can't be faked. You don't know, but I heard that the Millennium Black Spiritual Ginseng is a treasure that can't be bought with money. It can bring the dead back to life and has other amazing effects. Even if a cultivator with a damaged inner core consumes it, they can recover. The people in the city were talking about it, and the news gradually spread. Because some people saw the old master of the Huangfu family get out of bed and walk around, no one thought that it was fake. After all, the old master of the Huangfu family had already been declared by various doctors and alchemists that there was no way to save him. Now that his body had improved and he could even get out of bed and walk around, what other possibility could there be other than obtaining such a heavenly treasure? Some of the aristocratic families in the city were also astonished when they heard the news. In the hall, a middle-aged man sitting on the lower left side of the main seat said, "I heard from my subordinates early in the morning that the news had quietly spread throughout the city. I sent people to investigate. Indeed, it was the Huangfu family member who was able to get out of bed and walk around. What kind of treasure is this 1,000-year black spiritual ginseng? It can really make a dying person come back to life. If there really is such a treasure and the news was leaked, I'm afraid the Huangfu family won't be able to keep it." The middle-aged man's eyes flashed. "Send someone to check on the old man of the Huangfu family and see if he's having terminal lucidity. Or is he really getting better?" Chapter 4970. The middle-aged man who spoke did not finish his sentence. Instead, he looked at the middle-aged man and asked silently, "If there really is such a treasure, then the Huangfu clan will be in trouble." The middle-aged man on the main seat said. As soon as he finished speaking, he stood up and continued, "At best, the treasure will be stolen. At worst, the entire clan will be destroyed. Huang Fuxiao should not have leaked this information." He shook his head and sighed. At the same time, the various clans in the city were also discussing this matter. Some people did not know the use of the 1,000-year-old dark spiritual ginseng and investigated it. When they found out that it had such a miraculous effect, they were even more surprised. What kind of luck does the Huangfu clan have? How could they find such a treasure? However, the old man has not recovered yet. He can't take care of the Huangfu clan. If someone wants to take away this treasure, I'm afraid the Huangfu clan will not be able to defend themselves. As they spoke, everyone shook their heads. Some sighed and some felt pity. Although the Huangfu clan was not the top clan in the city, it was not a third-rate clan either. Moreover, Huangfu Xiao knew how to conduct himself. He had a good reputation and had never competed with others. Therefore, many people did not want his clan to get into big trouble because of this treasure. Some people wanted to warn him, while others were prepared to stand by and do nothing. At the same time, after an old man heard the news, he sent people to confirm it. After that, he came to his secret room. Master, the Huangfu clan in the city obtained 1,000-year-old dark spiritual ginseng. This item has a miraculous effect. It can revive the dead and restore the primordial spirit and spiritual core. Huangfu Zhao's father has been bedridden for a year or two. He has sought countless doctors, but they all said that he would not live past this year. However, this morning, there was news that he could get out of bed and walk around. I heard that he only ate a single strand of the ginseng, and it had such a miraculous effect. The person who was sitting cross-legged and recovering was wearing a large black cloak. His face was gloomy with a trace of paleness. His aura was very frightening and sinister. When he heard the old man's words, he opened his eyes and looked at him. His voice was gloomy and cold. "You should know that I don't want rumors. I want confirmation." The old man hurriedly replied, "Master, please rest assured. This subordinate has already sent people to inquire and confirm. Although they didn't see the 1,000-year dark soul ginseng, they did see the Huangfu clan's old master walking in the courtyard. Moreover, he seemed to be in good spirits." Upon hearing this, the black-robed man's gloomy eyes narrowed slightly as he said in a sinister voice, "Then send someone to snatch it." "Yes, sir," the old man replied and left the room. At night, the people in the Huangfu family were a little nervous. They went back to their rooms to rest early after the sky darkened. This was an order from the patriarch, so naturally, no one would go against it. Moreover, they also knew about the news that was spreading outside. Naturally, they knew that their Huangfu clan would get into trouble because of this. Therefore, they didn't dare to wander outside at night to avoid attracting trouble for no reason. Not only did they have to go to bed early at night, but they also had to not go out unless absolutely necessary. If they really had to go out, they had to bring more people with them. In contrast to the nervous mood of the Huangfu clan, Fengzhu lay on the roof of the Huangfu clan's residence after night fell, preparing to wait for the rabbit to appear. Chapter 49-71. Just as Fengzhu had expected, after the sky darkened, there were people who tried to sneak into the Huangfu clan under the cover of the night. However, after sneaking into the Huangfu clan, none of them returned. The people who were watching from a distance outside, the Huangfu family, were all surprised. Not a single person who went and came out. Not only that, there were no sounds of fighting coming from the Huangfu residence. Those people just mysteriously disappeared. The night gradually darkened. Huangfu Yunxue stood in the front courtyard as the corners of her eyes twitched slightly. She looked at the unconscious and dead people that gradually piled up in the courtyard. Her heart had already gone from the initial shock to the current numbness. Even her expression did not have the slightest trace of astonishment or surprise. Tonight, she was called here by the madam to help her pack some things. However, she did not expect to see the cultivators who tried to sneak in under the cover of the night. However, none of these people were able to cross the front courtyard. One by one, they mysteriously fell from the sky. They were either dead or injured. In any case, none of them were conscious. Fengzhu stretched her waist and glanced at Huangfu Yunxue, who was standing there foolishly. Her voice was soft and unhurried as she said, "Why are you still standing there foolishly? Kill the living ones with a slit in their throats, then take away all their valuables." Her words brought her back to her senses. She looked at her with a trace of hesitation in her eyes as she said, "Madam, are we really going to kill them all?" She could not bear to do it. Fengzhu curled her lips into a smile and said, "Kill them. You have to know that if I was not here, the people who would be killed tonight would be your Huangfu family. These sneaky people are not soft-hearted people. Perhaps because of her words, or perhaps because of other reasons, Huangfu Yunxue gripped her dagger and stepped forward. She gritted her teeth and reaped the lives of those people like a demon. Fengjiu sat on the roof and watched indifferently. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. Huangfu Yunxue had been by her side for 2 days. She was indeed a person with a clean mind. However, people like her usually did not live for long. Seeing that she had served her wholeheartedly for the past 2 days, she naturally did not mind giving her a push. She believed that after tonight, she would become different. Huangfu Yunxue did not know when she stopped. She only knew that the warm blood splashed all over her body. Some even splashed on her face. Her hands were stained with the blood. She sat in front of the pile of corpses in a daze. No one knew what she was thinking about. When the sky was about to brighten, she entered a state of enlightenment. As she sat there cross-legged, the spiritual energy in her body began to circulate. At this moment, even though her eyes were closed, she could still feel an unprecedented sense of clarity. The path she had taken, the path she would take in the future, and the confusion she had in the past were all cleared up at this moment. It was as if there was a voice in her mind asking her something. The sun rose in the east, and a new day had arrived. However, on this day, the various powers in the city exploded. They could not sit still. There was no other reason. It was because the people they sent out did not return for an entire night. There was no movement at all. It was as if they had disappeared into the thin air. Chapter 4972. Master. The black-robed man opened his eyes and stared coldly at the old man kneeling in front of him. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. "You didn't succeed?" he asked, his voice cold and filled with hostility. "Master, please forgive me." He placed his head on the ground and cowed out. Only then did he raise his head to look at him. With a dignified expression, he said, "Master, the people we sent out were all top experts. However, I didn't expect that none of them would return alive. Isn't there only Huangfu Xiao in the Huangfu clan? Other than him, what other experts are there?" he asked, the corners of his mouth drooping slightly, his face filled with displeasure. Right now, other than Huangfu Xiao, there are no other experts in the Huangfu clan. Even if there were, it would be the elders of the Huangfu clan. However, the people we sent out naturally have the strength to deal with those people. But now, we haven't heard from them at all. It's obvious that there's an unknown expert in the Huangfu clan. As the old man spoke, he looked at him and continued, "Last night, other than our people, there were 7 or 8 other groups that sneaked into the Huangfu clan. However, none of them returned. Because a few of our people were destroyed a few days ago, we lost many experts. On top of that, the ones we sent out last night were also killed. That's why I've come to report this to Master. Master, please give us your orders. What should we do?" Perhaps because he thought that a few of his people had been destroyed, the black-robed man's cold aura became even colder. He withdrew his aura and exhaled softly. "Tonight, you'll come with me personally. I want to see just who is in charge of the Huangfu clan. If he could get his hands on the 1,000-year dark soul ginseng, his physical condition would recover. His damaged soul would also recover, and his strength would return to its peak. So, no matter who was in charge of the Huangfu clan, even he had to make a trip there himself." Yes, hearing that he wanted to go personally, the old man sighed in relief. He felt that if he went personally, he would be able to get his hands on the item. "Haven't you found that person yet?" the black-robed man asked again. The old man lowered his head and said, "Not yet. The main reason is that no one saw it, and we don't know if it's a man or a woman. We can only search for foreign cultivators in the city, so we haven't found anything yet. Investigate. We must drag him out and put him to death by 1,000 cuts," he said in a gloomy voice. "Yes." The old man bowed and left the room. In the Huangfu family, Huangfu Xiao, who had always been serious, came to his father's courtyard with excitement and joy. "Father, Yunxue has been enlightened." Hearing this, old Master Huangfu was slightly taken aback. His eyes widened with surprise and astonishment. Epiphany? Yinxue? Yes. Last night, because of Madame Xuanyuan's words, I ordered the servants not to go out. Even if they heard the commotion, they were not to come out of their rooms. I went over to take a look this morning. The corpses piled up in the front yard were as tall as a small mountain. Furthermore, they were all experts with extraordinary strength. Speaking of this, Huangfu Xiao exhaled deeply and said, "When I arrived, Madame Xianyuan had already returned to her courtyard to rest. Only Yunxue was sitting in front of the pile of corpses, her body covered in blood. There was a barrier around her that prevented anyone from approaching. It should have been set up by Madame Xianyuan." Chapter 4973. Yes, I know. I'm thinking that since she's had an epiphany this time, she'll probably break through soon. Moreover, being able to enter an epiphany is a good thing for cultivators. It'll be extremely beneficial to her future cultivation. Huangfu Xiao said with a smile, "Father, it's also fortunate that you told Yunxue to go take care of Madame Xianyuan. I didn't expect that in just a day or two, she would have such an opportunity. Madame Xianyuan is a supreme expert. As long as she is willing, she can bring great benefits to others," the old man said with emotion. "To be able to meet her is the accumulated good karma of our Huangfu clan's ancestors. This is truly a great blessing. It's also fortunate that she was guarding for us. Otherwise, with those people from last night, I'm afraid." Thinking about the pile of corpses in the front yard, his heart felt heavy. Who would have thought that a single 1,000-year black soul ginseng would be able to attract so many experts? In this world, experts were extremely fanatical and crazy about rare and precious treasures. I'm afraid that the people coming tonight will be even stronger. You should prepare early today. The old man said. "All right, I'll arrange it now," he said, bowed, and then walked out. In the evening, when Fengjiu came out of her room, she saw Huangfu Yunxue, who had already changed into a new set of clothes, waiting in the courtyard. When she saw her come out, she went forward and bowed to her. "Yunxue, thank you for your kindness." She gratefully bowed to her. Her heart was filled with gratitude. Fengjiu waved her hand indifferently. "It's your own realization. It has nothing to do with me." She walked to the table and sat down. Huangfu Yunxue went forward and ladled a bowl of soup for her. If it wasn't for Madame, Yunxue wouldn't have this epiphany. Yunxue will remember Madame's kindness in her heart. Fengjiu drank a mouthful of soup and didn't say anything. She only picked up her chopsticks and ate some food. After dinner, she put down her chopsticks and wiped the corners of her mouth. "You don't have to follow us tonight. Go back to your room early and don't go out. Don't come out even if you hear something." Hearing this, Huangfu Yunxue recalled the scene from last night. Her heart skipped a beat, but she didn't ask any further. Instead, she replied respectfully, "Yes." Fengjiu walked outside. He first went to Old Master Huangfu's courtyard to perform another round of acupuncture. By the time he finished, it was already dark outside. She looked at the darkening sky and narrowed her eyes. Instead of returning to the courtyard, she walked towards the front yard. The corpses in the front yard had already been cleaned up, and even the spatial energy couldn't find a trace of blood from last night. It was as if the pile of corpses last night was just an illusion. Fengjiu waved his hand and set up a barrier, isolating the Huangfu family's backyard from the front yard. Instead of waiting on the roof, she clasped her hands behind her back and found a place to sit in the front yard. As night fell, 7 or 8 black-clothed cultivators quietly snuck in. They looked around vigilantly, then quietly landed in the front yard. Fengjiu sat in a corner of the front yard. Because she had concealed her aura and deliberately concealed herself, the 7 or 8 cultivators didn't notice her presence in the corner. Because her figure was blocked by a pillar, and because of the darkness of the night, there were no lights in the front yard, so no one noticed her. Chapter 4974. At this moment, they didn't know that Fengjiu was quietly sizing up the 7 or 8 people. She saw that these people were stronger and more cautious than the people who came last night, but they still weren't the person she was waiting for. There seems to be a barrier here, one of them said, and his footsteps paused. There is a barrier. Fengjiu's voice suddenly rang out, startling the people. Who is it? They shouted in a low voice, but they couldn't tell where the voice came from. The surroundings were pitch black, but for experts with high cultivation, even if their vision wasn't as clear as it was during the day, they shouldn't be unable to see the person hiding in the dark. However, they could only hear the voice and didn't see the person hiding in the dark. Fengjiu walked out from the dark, and her gaze swept over the people, asking, "Who are you?" The leader's vigilant gaze fell on the person who walked out, and he was surprised to see that it was a woman. However, when he wanted to see the woman's cultivation, the divine sense he released seemed to have encountered something powerful and terrifying, and he suddenly withdrew. At the same time, he also took a step back. "Are you the expert who oversees the Huangfu family?" The leader said, and his entire body tensed up because he sensed the invisible, dangerous aura. His whole body was ready to fight, and he could retreat at any time. For some unknown reason, Fengjiu didn't take their lives like last night. Instead, she stared at them and said, "Because of your cultivation, I won't kill you." As soon as she finished speaking, her hand moved, and a few silver needles instantly shot out. Almost at the same time as her silver needles shot out, several people instinctively reacted, and a strong spiritual aura instantly formed a defensive shield to protect their bodies. However, they didn't expect that just as they were about to use their spiritual aura to form a defensive barrier to protect their bodies, the thin silver needles easily broke through their defensive barrier and shot into the acupuncture points on their bodies. While they were still in shock, they didn't even have the time to cry out before they felt powerless. It was as if their spiritual aura had disappeared in an instant. Their legs went soft, and they fell to the ground. At this moment, their hearts sank. Fengjiu waved her sleeve, and a gust of wind blew, sending the people to a corner. They tried to make sound, but no sound came out. Their bodies couldn't move, and they could only weakly fall to the ground. "You lost many people last night, and you still dare to come tonight. Your courage is commendable." Fengjiu glanced at them indifferently, and when she saw that they were struggling to get up, she raised her hand and put her index finger to her lips, gesturing for them to be quiet. "Don't be noisy, and don't ruin my business. Otherwise, I don't mind killing you all." It was clearly such a gentle voice, but in their ears, it was like a sudden clap of thunder that set off a storm in their hearts. A chill even rose from the soles of their feet to their hearts, so cold that they couldn't help but shiver. Chapter 4975. With this thought in mind, they froze and did not dare to move. Only cold sweat poured out of their bodies. At that moment, none of them expected that with their cultivation, strength, and experience of countless trials and hardships, they would actually be frightened by a woman like her. However, no one dared to challenge her bottom line, let alone try to make a move to see if she would really do as she said. They looked at her and could not help but swallow their saliva, trying to suppress the fear in their hearts. To think that there would be a day when they who had been in a high position for a long time did not even have the courage to try. Fengjiu glanced at them indifferently, then turned around and walked back to the corner to sit, waiting for the next batch of unlucky cultivators to come. In any case, these people were considered experts in her territory. It was one thing to kill a group of them last night, but the group tonight, if not for the fact that they really deserved to die, she would naturally have spared their lives. After all, it was rare for someone to be able to cultivate to such a level. However, she did not know how many people would come to try tonight. After about half an incense stick's worth of time, a few more people came quietly. They stood on top of the wall and didn't go down. Instead, they looked around vigilantly. One of them said, "I heard that there's an expert overseeing this place. I wonder what kind of person he is? I don't sense any experts here now." Another person said, then suddenly exclaimed, "There seems to be a few auras in the corner, but they are very weak." Hearing the words of the people on the wall, the few people who were said to be very weak stared at the people on the wall. They secretly gritted their teeth and cursed. "Weak? Come down and try." It seems that a few figures came in first. Could it be those people who came in earlier? Another person said, a little surprised. He used his divine sense to sweep in that direction, but strangely said, "But I heard from the people outside that the 7 or 8 people who came in earlier were not weak. Maybe it's not those people?" At this time, an old man said in a slightly serious tone, "Maybe it's those people, but they are on the verge of death." Hearing this, the people in the corner couldn't help but glance at the other corner. Although they did not suffer any injuries and were on the verge of death, they were lying there powerlessly. It seemed that they were not far from dying. And the cause of all this was the unknown woman in the corner. "Then are we going in? Or is it through?" A person on the wall asked. The surroundings were silent for a moment. No one spoke, as if they were thinking. In the end, it was the old man who said, "I already knew that the Huangfu clan has an expert in charge, didn't I? Since he had already come, how could there be a reason to retreat? What's more, we only intended to bet on the 1,000-year-old dark soul ginseng. As for the Huangfu clan, we'll try our best not to hurt them." "Good, then let's go." The other person also expressed his agreement, and as soon as his voice fell, he rushed down to the courtyard below. Seeing this, the others also jumped down. The 7 or 8 black-clothed men in the corner who saw them jump down all revealed strange smiles at this moment. It's good that he's down. Once they came down, they would have company. He just didn't know who these unlucky old fellows were. Chapter 4976. The few people in the corner snorted in their hearts. They saw a gust of wind sweep the few people towards them. When they saw the few people falling towards them, their eyes widened. They wanted to retreat, but they could not move. They could only watch as the few people fell towards them and pressed down on them. The few people at the bottom groaned. It was the sound of their bodies being pressed down by the heavy pressure. The people who fell on top were stunned. While they were stunned by the human cushion under them, they were also extremely shocked. They had just entered. How could they have fallen? Who on earth had done this? How could they do it so silently? Fengjiu did not come out from the shadows. She was still waiting. Aside from the auras in the corner, there was no one else around. In the following time, no one else came in. She waited until midnight. Just when she thought that the person would not come tonight, she saw 2 figures jump onto the wall. When she saw the 2 figures, Fengjiu narrowed her eyes. She was the one who had destroyed that person's spirit. Therefore, even if that person did not show his face, she could still recognize him based on the aura of his spirit. It was very obvious that one of the people standing on the wall was the person she had been waiting for. "Master, there seems to be someone over there," the old man next to him said. His gaze fell on a corner of the courtyard. He felt that there were many people there. Could it be that they were lying in ambush there? The black-robed man did not speak. Instead, he narrowed his cold eyes and scanned the courtyard. In the end, he confirmed that aside from the auras in the corner, there were no other auras. However, the Huangfu family was definitely not as simple as they seemed on the surface to be able to cause people from various forces to fall here. "Your Excellency's ability to conceal your aura is quite good." He stood on the wall with his hands behind his back as he spoke. At this moment, his cold voice contained an aura of spiritual power that penetrated through the surroundings and reverberated in the air. As he spoke, his gaze was still observing the surroundings. Compared to the others, even though he was not weak, he was more vigilant. Hearing that, Fengjiu revealed a light smile. Her laughter was slow and carried a hint of coldness as it spread through the night. "A woman." Hearing that it was a woman's voice, the black-robed man frowned slightly, and his expression became gloomy. In almost an instant, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. In that instant, he guessed who the woman was from the laughter. "It's you, the woman who destroyed a strand of my spirit." The aura around him became cold. A powerful aura was released from his body and covered the entire Huangfu residence. He said in a sinister voice, "It seems that the person who destroyed several of my bases were you as well. This Huangfu family has no 1,000-year-old black spirit. It was a trick of yours to lure me here." These words shocked the people who were piled up in the corner. It can't be. There was no 1,000-year-old black spirit ginseng? Then they were tricked? Was it their own fault that they were suffering in this place? Could it be that the person hiding in the dark was trying to bait the person on the wall? Chapter 4977. The Palace Master of the Spectre Palace has the strength of a refined state. If you had not touched my reverse scale, you might have been able to ascend and become a great emperor in a few decades, or even a few centuries. Unfortunately, you've committed an unforgivable mistake. Fungio's gentle voice carried a trace of coldness as it echoed clearly in the night sky. Due to the barrier, apart from the people in the front yard, no one else in the Huangfu family's backyard could hear what was being said or hear anything. The few people in the corner had already instinctively held their breaths. They only felt cold sweat seeping out from their backs, and a chill ran up from the soles of their feet. Fear spread in their hearts, and they wished they had never come to the Huangfu family, never seen this scene, never heard these words. The strength of a supreme being had been casually mentioned by the woman. Her tone and voice made it seem as if she didn't place a supreme being in her eyes at all. However, they knew that the refined state's strength could easily turn Yaoyang City into ruins with a stomp of her foot, not to mention the fact that they were still lying in the corner. If the two parties were to really fight, would they not be implicated? If one of them was unlucky, they might even die here. Since the woman had said those words, it was obvious that she was stronger than the refined state's opponent. Throughout the world, there were not many women with such strength. However, they were unable to guess the identity of this person. The black-robed man's eyes twitched when he heard the murderous voice. He stared at the green-robed woman below and asked, "Is it that little girl?" He had only exchanged blows with this woman once. At that time, he was about to capture the little girl with the innate spiritual body and refine her into a pill. At that time, he recognized the whip and the little girl called Yun Shi as Emperor Qing's disciple. He had thought that he could quietly get rid of her. Even if Emperor Qing found out in the future, he might have successfully ascended by then. However, he did not expect this woman to suddenly appear and ruin his plans. "I haven't even settled the score with you for ruining my plans, but you've delivered yourself to me. Since that's the case, I'll have to properly deal with you." He felt that it was because he only had a strand of his soul last time, which was why that strand of soul had been destroyed. Now that she was facing his true body, he didn't believe that he would lose to a woman with his strength and cultivation. As soon as he finished speaking, his hand turned into a claw and attacked Fengjiu below. He released his powerful aura and pressure, forming a powerful force of oppression. However, he was facing none other than the Empress, the Phoenix Master, Fengjiu. From the moment he had attacked Yu'er, he was destined to die. The black-robed man only felt that in that instant, a pressure that was even more powerful than his own swept over him, causing his entire body to stiffen. His hand also stopped in midair at that moment. In that moment of shock, a ball of flames flew toward him and surrounded him. The fierce flames and extremely high temperature burned him until he could not help but scream. He could not care less about attacking the woman and quickly tried to extinguish the flames on his body. Chapter 4978. He screamed in horror, and his voice was sharp and filled with terror. The flames on his body continued to burn, and no matter how hard he tried, he could not put them out. Furthermore, these were not just natal heavenly flames, they were ancient divine flames. Even though he was a refined state cultivator, under the pressure of the other party's domineering aura and the attack of the flames, he was unable to resolve the crisis before him. Who are you? Who are you?" He screamed in agony as his body rolled and fell to the ground. However, he could not put out the flames on his body. The flames seemed to have a life of their own as they wrapped tightly around him and burned him. The smell of burnt flesh also filled the air with a night breeze. What can a dying man do even if he knows? Fengjiu calmly replied as she looked at the man in black robes who was rolling on the ground and screaming in agony. She moved her hand and held the green-edged sword in her hand. A faint green light gushed out from the blade. "No one has ever been able to hide from me when I want to kill them." Her clear and cold voice rang out as she raised the sword in her hand and slashed down with a sharp sword intent. The sword intent was like the mountains and rivers, swift and fierce. Whoosh! Ah! As the swift and fierce sword intent was released, a shrill scream filled with unwillingness rang out. However, a barrier had been set up in the courtyard, and the sound did not spread beyond the barrier. The only ones who had witnessed this scene were the people who had collapsed in a corner and were trembling in fear with pale faces, blood splattered everywhere as the man's body was split into two and scattered on the ground. The flames continued to burn until not even a speck of ash was left. Everything was blown away by the night breeze. The old man who had come with the man in black robes had long been shocked into a daze by this scene. He did not even dare to think of running away because the domineering aura was far too powerful and intimidating. The woman's power was far too terrifying. He was so frightened that his legs turned to jelly and he fell to the corner of the wall as he trembled incessantly. Cold sweat seeped from his forehead and his face was as white as a sheet. His immense fear had caused him to become absent-minded. His eyes had lost their usual vigor, and he sat there as if he had lost his mind. Feng Jiu glanced at him. With a twist of the Qing Feng sword in his hand, a cold light flashed past, instantly sealing his throat. Even as he died, the old man's eyes were wide open and his face was filled with terror. He didn't even let out a scream. The people in the corner were desperately trying to reduce their presence. What kind of existence was the Hall Master of Netherworld Palace? Let alone the people in Yaoyang City. Even the nearby experts had heard of his name and knew that his strength was extraordinary. Now, he had been crushed and killed by the woman in green without being able to fight back. They had even witnessed it with their own eyes. How could they not be frightened? After dealing with those two, Feng Jiu was in a good mood. After all, killing the person who wanted to refine her daughter into a pill could be considered as settling one of her worries. At least, she didn't have to worry that her child would be targeted again when she wasn't there to protect him. She gently stroked the blade of the Qing Feng sword with her finger and put it away with a turn of her hand. She turned to look at the people in the corner. With a twist of her hand, a wave of spiritual energy surged. In the next moment, a muffled groan was heard. Chapter 4979. The people who had been lying on the ground, stacked on top of each other, suddenly felt their spiritual auras recover. They could move their bodies again, and the flow of qi in their bodies also returned to normal. They all felt relieved, thinking that since she didn't kill them, she wouldn't kill them, right? Not daring to hesitate, they quickly stood up and walked out. Why did she ask that question? After exchanging glances with each other, everyone replied in unison, reporting to Honored Sir, we all saw it. Not only did they see it, but they also saw it clearly. They believed that no matter how many years passed, they would never forget what happened tonight. Oh, then tell me what's going on tonight. Feng Nine curled her lips and looked at one of the old men. Seeing Feng Jiu staring at him, the old man's heart trembled. Not daring to be careless, he took a step forward and cupped his hands respectfully. After thinking for a moment, he hesitantly said, the news that the Huangfu clan has a 1,000-year-old dark spirit ginseng is fake. It was mainly used to lure the ghost palace master. Now that this matter is over, what does Honored Sir need us to do? We dare not disobey your orders. Everyone looked at her. Seeing her standing there quietly in her green robes with a faint smile on her face, they couldn't help shuddering and hurriedly lowered their gazes. At this moment, she had completely retracted her powerful aura. If they had not seen how powerful she was earlier, no one would have thought that she was the one who had killed the Hall Master of Spectre Palace in such a state. Not even his corpse was left behind. Even his soul had probably been incinerated by the heavenly flames and dissipated between heaven and earth. Very good, Feng Jiu said as he slowly walked around the courtyard. I asked Huangfu Xiao to spread the news and lure that person here. Now that he has been killed, the matter is over. Naturally, there is nothing else to do. However, you all saw the scene tonight, so you naturally know the inside story. However, the people outside don't know. They think that because the Huangfu clan has a 1,000-year-old dark spirit ginseng, there won't be a day of peace in the Huangfu clan. Hearing this, everyone's hearts trembled, and they immediately said, "Rest assured, honored sir, we will spread the news and let the people outside know that the Huangfu clan doesn't have a 1,000-year-old dark spirit ginseng." They were all people who had lived for hundreds of years. As soon as she said this, they naturally guessed what she meant and secretly sighed in relief. They were also surprised that the Huangfu clan's dark spirit ginseng was actually able to befriend such a powerful master. No, even if others didn't know her identity, the Huangfu clan should know. Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken such a big risk and spread the news of the 1,000-year dark soul ginseng to attract trouble. I want this force to disappear. Hearing this, they did not hesitate and immediately responded, "Yes." Several of Netherworld Palace's branches had been destroyed, resulting in the deaths of many of their experts. On top of that, even their hall master had died tonight. As such, only a few of their subordinates remained. Given their strength and influence, it was a piece of cake for them to eliminate this force. "Go," Fengjiu gestured. "Tell them to leave. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.